Captain Jake Morrison walked into the huge meeting room of the Galactic Council. His face looked tired and angry after 30 years of trying to keep peace between alien races. Around him sat hundreds of different species from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant bugs, others were made of crystal, and some floated in the air like ghosts. The meeting started like all the others. Two alien races were fighting over who could mine rocks in space. The Zephyrians looked like giant octopus, creatures with purple skin. Their leader waved his tentacles around as he shouted, "We will never share our mining rights with those dirty Corvin bugs. They steal everything they touch." On the other side of the room, the Corvin leader stood up. His body was made of bright blue crystal that glowed when he got mad. "We were mining those rocks for 1,000 years before you slug creatures even learned to fly." Jake looked at Admiral Lisa Parker, who sat next to him. She was Earth's top military officer at the Council. Next to her sat Dr. Ben Carter, a scientist who studied alien life. Both of them looked as tired as Jake felt. They had seen this same fight happen over and over again. "Every single time," Lisa whispered to Jake. "They fight, we fix it, they fight again." The ethereal chancellor floated above everyone else. It looked like a ghost made of white light. When it spoke, machines translated its words into every language in the galaxy. "The Galactic Council will use Earth's peace plan," the chancellor said. "Humans will watch over both sides to make sure they share the mining rights fairly." Jake felt his heart sink. Another problem dumped on Earth. Another mess for humans to clean up. He thought about his home planet, where millions of people worked hard every day. Earth's colonies needed food and supplies, but instead of helping their own people, humans spent all their time stopping alien wars. "The humans are so good at making peace," said a delegate from the Spiral Federation. "They always know how to make enemies work together." "Yes, very useful," agreed another alien. "Let them handle this problem too." Jake remembered all the human soldiers who had died keeping peace between aliens who hated each other. He thought about human engineers who built space stations for aliens who never said thank you. He thought about human diplomats who worked day and night to stop wars that had nothing to do with Earth. Other species got rich from the peace humans created, but what did Earth get? More work, more problems, more aliens expecting humans to fix everything. The Zephyrian leader pointed at the Corvin leader. "Fine, but only because the humans will watch them. If they steal even one rock, we go to war." "Same here," the Corvin replied. "The humans better make sure these thieves stay in line." Jake stood up slowly. The whole room went quiet. Everyone expected him to accept the job like humans always did. "No," Jake said in a clear voice. The Chancellor's glowing form flickered, like a broken light. "What did you say, Captain Morrison?" Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked confused, others looked angry. None of them looked grateful for everything humans had done for them over the years. "I said no. Earth will not fix this problem. Earth will not watch over your mining deal. Earth will not send peacekeepers to stop your wars anymore." The room exploded with noise. Aliens jumped up from their seats shouting in hundreds of different languages. The translation machines could not keep up with all the angry voices. "You cannot refuse," shouted the Zephyrian. "Humans always fix our problems. This is your job," yelled the Corvin. "What else are humans good for?" Jake felt 30 years of anger building up inside him. "What are we good for? We are good for taking care of our own people instead of yours. We are good for building our own worlds instead of yours. We are good for living our own lives instead of fixing yours." The Chancellor tried to restore order. "Captain Morrison, Earth has responsibilities to the galactic community." "Our only responsibility is to ourselves," Jake replied. "For 30 years we have been the galaxy's free police force. We have been the galaxy's free engineers. We have been the galaxy's free problem solvers. Not anymore." Admiral Parker stood up next to Jake. "Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." Dr. Carter also stood. "All human personnel will return to Earth space within 60 days. The aliens could not believe what they were hearing. For 3 decades they had counted on humans to stop their wars, fix their problems, and keep the peace. Now suddenly the humans were leaving. "You cannot do this," screamed a delegate from the outer rim. "Without humans, we will have chaos." Jake looked at the alien with cold eyes. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you treated us like your servants." The Andromedan ambassador floated forward. "Surely we can negotiate. What do you want? More territory? Better trade deals?" "We want to be left alone," Jake said simply. "We want to take care of our own people for once. We want to build our own future instead of maintaining yours." The room fell silent for a moment. Then the chaos started again, but Jake was already walking toward the exit. Lisa and Ben followed him. Behind them, hundreds of alien voices rose in panic and anger. "This is a mistake," shouted someone. "You will regret this," yelled another. Jake paused at the door and turned back one last time. "The only thing we regret is waiting 30 years to do this." As they walked out, Jake heard the Chancellor trying to call an emergency session. Aliens were already starting to argue with each other without human mediators to keep them calm. Jake smiled grimly. They would learn very quickly what life was like without humans to solve their problems. The three humans walked through the space station toward their ship. Other humans they passed looked confused but hopeful. Word was already spreading that Earth was finally putting itself first. "Think they will figure it out?" Lisa asked as they boarded their shuttle. Jake looked back at the council building where aliens were still shouting at each other. "That is their problem now, not ours." The shuttle launched toward Earth space, leaving the Galactic Council behind. Forever. Jake felt lighter than he had in years. For the first time in 3 decades, humanity was free to choose its own path. Behind them, the galaxy prepared to learn what peace was really worth. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council. Commander Amy Rodriguez sat in the control room of Luna Station, watching screens full of bad news from across the galaxy. Every day brought reports of new fights, and wars breaking out everywhere. "Commander, we have more trouble reports coming in," said Lieutenant Pete Jackson. He was young and looked worried as he read from his computer screen. "The Andromedans and the Spiral Collective are shooting at each other again. This time it is about who controls the main trade routes between Sectors 7 and 9. Amy looked at the big star map on the wall. Red dots showed where wars were happening. Yellow dots showed places where trouble was starting. Green dots showed peaceful areas. Every day there were more red dots and fewer green ones. "What else?" Amy asked, though she did not really want to know. "The Zephyrians have surrounded 3 Corvan planets with their warships," Pete continued. "They are not letting any ships in or out. Millions of Corvan people might starve if this keeps up." Amy remembered when humans would have rushed to stop this kind of blockade. Earth ships would have forced the Zephyrians to back down and made sure food got to the trapped planets. But those days were over. Dr. Nancy Foster ran into the control room holding her tablet computer. Her hair was messy and she looked like she had not slept in days. "Amy, you need to see this right now. The old hegemony wars have started again." Amy's heart sank. The hegemony wars had been a huge conflict between 2 groups of alien races 20 years ago. Millions had died before human peacekeepers finally stopped the fighting. Now it was starting all over again. "The Stellar Federation is moving their entire war fleet toward iron compact space," Nancy said, reading from her tablet. "Both sides sent messages to Earth demanding that we pick a side and help them fight." "And what did President Wright tell them?" Amy asked. "The same thing she has told everyone else. Earth stays neutral. We defend our own territory and nothing else. We do not take sides in alien wars anymore." Amy thought about President Kelly, Wright's speech to the galaxy 3 months ago. The president had been very clear that Earth would protect human colonies in human space, but would not send soldiers to fight in alien conflicts anymore. At first, many alien races had celebrated when humans left the council. Some had even thrown parties saying they were happy to be free from human control. They claimed they could handle their own problems just fine without human help. Now those same aliens were learning what life was like, without human peacekeepers. Captain Rick Stone's voice came through the communication system from his ship on the outer edge of human space. "Luna Station, this is Captain Stone on the Earth ship Guardian. I am watching the Corvan Zephyrian fight from a safe distance." "What is your report, Captain?" Amy asked. Rick's voice sounded tired and sad. It is bad, Commander, really bad. They are using planet-killer weapons now. The Zephyrians just destroyed a small moon that had a Corvin mining base on it. About 50,000 Corvin workers died instantly. Amy closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Every part of her wanted to order Rick to stop the fighting. For 30 years, that is what humans would have done. They would have moved their ships between the two sides and forced them to talk instead of fight. But Jake Morrison had been right at the council meeting. Earth had spent 30 years being the galaxy's police force for free. Human soldiers had died in wars that had nothing to do with Earth. Human families had lost fathers and mothers trying to keep peace between aliens who never even said thank you. Captain Stone, maintain your distance and do not get involved, Amy ordered. Send out a message that any ships wanting safe passage through human space are welcome, but we will not take sides in this conflict. Understood, Commander. It is hard to watch, but I understand. Dr. Foster pulled up more reports on her tablet. Amy, it gets worse. The Void Syndicate has started raiding cargo ships in the Outer Rim sectors. With no human patrol ships to stop them, they are attacking anyone they want. The Void Syndicate was a group of space pirates that had always been a problem. But when human peacekeepers patrolled the galaxy, the pirates had to hide and could only attack small, undefended ships. Now, with humans gone, they were getting bold and attacking big cargo vessels and even passenger ships. How many ships have they hit? Amy asked. 17 in the last 2 weeks. They killed over 300 aliens and stole cargo worth millions of credits. Amy looked at the star map again. More red dots had appeared just while they were talking. The galaxy was falling apart without human peacekeepers to hold it together. Lieutenant Pete got another message on his computer. Commander, we are getting emergency calls from 12 different alien governments. They all want Earth to send help immediately. What kind of help? Everything. Peacekeepers to stop wars. Engineers to fix damaged space stations. Diplomats to arrange peace talks. Medical ships to help war victims. Food shipments for blockaded planets. Amy thought about how these same alien governments had complained about human interference for decades. They had accused Earth of trying to control the galaxy and had demanded that humans mind their own business. Send the same reply to all of them, Amy said. Earth's position has not changed. We remain neutral in all galactic conflicts. We will provide safe passage through human space for any peaceful ships, but we will not intervene in wars or disputes between other species. Yes, ma'am, Pete said. But he looked uncomfortable sending such messages while millions of aliens were dying in wars that humans could probably stop. Dr. Foster sat down heavily in a chair. Amy, do you think we made the right choice? Maybe. We should have stayed in the council. Amy looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient enemies were killing each other in wars that had started the moment humans stopped watching them. Pirates were attacking innocent travelers. Entire planets were being blockaded and starved. But Amy also thought about Earth's colonies, which were finally getting the supplies and attention they needed, now that Earth was not spending everything on alien problems. She thought about human families who no longer had to worry about their loved ones dying in alien wars. I do not know if it was right, Amy said honestly, but it was necessary. We tried for 30 years to teach them how to live in peace. If they have not learned by now, maybe they never will. Outside the window, the stars looked the same as always. But Amy knew that out there in the darkness the galaxy was tearing itself apart without humans to hold it together. 1 year had passed since Earth left the Galactic Council. General Sam Hayes stood in Earth's main war room, looking at reports that showed how bad things had become across the galaxy. What used to be a peaceful alliance of thousands of different alien species was now a broken mess of wars, pirates, and dead planets. The numbers are terrible, General, said Colonel Marie Davis as she put new data on the big screen. We are tracking 47 different wars happening right now. 23 places where millions of aliens are starving or dying from disease. 6 major star sectors where all government has completely collapsed. The holographic display showed the galaxy like a 3-dimensional map floating in the air. Most of it was colored red and black now. Red meant active war zones where aliens were fighting and killing each other. Black meant areas where civilization had completely broken down and only pirates and criminals lived. Captain Troy Miller had just returned from a dangerous scouting mission to see what was happening in alien space. He looked exhausted, and his uniform was dirty from weeks in his small scout ship. "General, the Andromeda sector is completely finished," Troy reported. "The Stellar Federation and the Iron Compact are using weapons that were banned by galactic law for centuries. They cracked open 3 entire planets and turned them into floating rocks. One whole star system is now so radioactive that nothing can live there for 10,000 years. General Hayes shook his head sadly. Those weapons had been locked away by treaties that humans had helped write decades ago. Without human peacekeepers to enforce the treaties, the aliens had dug up their most terrible weapons and started using them again. Dr. Grace Taylor was Earth's expert on alien politics and economics. She had spent her whole career studying how different species worked together. Now she studied how they were destroying each other. "The economic collapse is getting worse every day," Grace said, showing charts full of red downward arrows. "Without humans to solve trade disputes, the major shipping routes have shut down completely. Species that depended on buying food and supplies from other worlds are now facing starvation. For hundreds of years, aliens had traded with each other across the galaxy. Human diplomats had helped settle arguments about prices, shipping routes, and trade deals. When 2 species disagreed about a business deal, humans would step in and find a solution that worked for everyone. Now, without human mediators, every small trade disagreement turned into a big fight. Shipping companies refused to go to dangerous areas. Entire planets that used to import food were now cut off and their people were starving." President Kelly Wright appeared on the main communication screen from her office on Earth. She looked much older than she had just 1 year ago. Leading Earth through this crisis had aged her quickly. "General Hayes, I need your honest opinion. Are we looking at temporary problems that will fix themselves? Or is this the complete end of galactic civilization?" Sam thought carefully before answering. "Madam President, I believe we are watching the total collapse of everything that held the galaxy together. Every peace treaty, every trade agreement, every system for solving problems peacefully was apparently completely dependent on human involvement. Without us, they have gone back to the old way of settling arguments through violence and war." Intelligence Officer Dan Roberts stepped forward with a folder full of secret reports from human spies still operating in alien space. "Ma'am, we are also seeing something very disturbing. Multiple alien species are now trying to build weapons specifically designed to kill humans. They seem to think we will eventually come back as conquerors instead of peacekeepers. This was perhaps the most shocking development of all. For 30 years, humans had risked their lives to keep peace between alien species. Human soldiers had died protecting aliens from each other. Human engineers had built infrastructure to help alien civilizations grow and prosper. Now, instead of being grateful, many aliens believed that humans had left the Council as part of some secret plan to conquer the galaxy later. Paranoid alien leaders convinced their people that the humans were just waiting for the right moment to attack and take over everything. "What about all the emergency calls for help?" President Wright asked. "Thousands every single day," Marie answered. "Desperate messages begging us to come back. Some offer us tribute payments, others make threats. Some promise to treat humans better if we return to the Council. A few even offer to make humans the rulers of their planets." The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. The same aliens who had spent decades complaining about human interference and human control were now literally begging humans to come back and take control of their problems. Captain Linda Brown had been monitoring communications from the former council chambers. "General, I think you should know that the old council building was completely destroyed last week. The Zephyrians and Corvins had a battle right inside the main assembly hall. The building where species had met peacefully for 300 years is now just floating debris." General Hayes pulled up a star chart showing the areas that were still relatively peaceful. "Look at this pattern. The only stable regions left are either very isolated places where aliens have no neighbors to fight with, or areas where the local species have started copying human methods. He pointed to a small green area on the map. The Tau sector managed to avoid major wars by creating their own mediation council based on how humans used to solve their problems. They are actually doing pretty well. Dr. Taylor nodded. That matches what I am seeing in my research. The species that are surviving and staying peaceful are the ones that learned from watching humans for 30 years. They figured out how to compromise instead of fight. They learned how to share resources instead of stealing them. President Wright looked thoughtful. So, some of them did learn from us. Yes, but not many, Sam replied. Maybe 5% of species have successfully adapted. The other 95% have either destroyed themselves or are in the process of doing so. Intelligence Officer Roberts showed more reports. The worst part is that the violence is spreading. Species that used to be peaceful are being forced to become violent just to survive. Pirates and raiders are taking over entire sectors because there are no peacekeepers to stop them. Captain Miller, who had seen the destruction firsthand, spoke quietly. General, I flew through the remains of the Helix Nebula colonies last month. 50 million people used to live there. Now it is just empty space stations and dead planets. The war between the local factions was so intense that they literally destroyed everything they were fighting over. General Hayes looked at the galactic map one more time. New red zones were appearing even as they watched, like a disease spreading across the stars. Madam President, I believe we are witnessing the end of galactic civilization as we knew it. The question now is whether anything will survive long enough to rebuild when this is all over. Outside the war room windows, Earth looked peaceful and beautiful. But beyond Earth's solar system, the galaxy was burning itself to ashes. 5 years had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council meeting. Now he stood in a much smaller room on Harmony Station, one of the few safe places left in the galaxy. The Grand Council chambers were gone, destroyed in the third year of what people now called the Great Collapse. Jake was older now, with gray hair and lines on his face from watching the galaxy tear itself apart. He was no longer a ship captain, but Earth had asked him to be their senior advisor on galactic affairs. Today he spoke to a small group of alien representatives who had somehow survived the chaos. 5 years ago, I told the Council that Earth was done being the galaxy's babysitter. Jake began, looking at the tired faces before him. What happened after that proved we should have left much earlier. The aliens sitting in front of him looked nothing like the proud delegates who used to demand human help in the old council. These were survivors, scarred by years of war and suffering. Their homeworlds were destroyed or damaged. Their people were scattered across the galaxy as refugees. Commander Kate Wilson stood next to Jake. She was Earth's new chief diplomat, chosen because she was good at talking to aliens without promising them things Earth would not do. The galaxy today is completely different from the one humanity left behind, Kate said, reading from her report. More than 60% of inhabited star systems are now war zones, completely destroyed or controlled by pirates and warlords. Trade between worlds has dropped to less than 10% of what it used to be. We estimate that over 2 trillion intelligent beings have died in the wars that started after we left. The numbers were staggering, but everyone in the room had lived through the collapse. They had seen their worlds burn and their people die. They knew how bad things had become. Captain Alex Bell represented Earth's greatly expanded merchant fleet. With most of the galaxy in chaos, human traders had become very important for the few peaceful areas that remained. However, something interesting has come out of this disaster, Alex said. The species that survived the collapse learned to solve their own problems. They developed their own ways to make peace. They built their own defense forces. They found their own solutions. The ones who survived did so by becoming more like humans in many ways. This was the most important lesson of the past 5 years. The aliens who had learned to think and act like humans were the ones who survived. They learned to compromise instead of fight. They learned to share resources instead of stealing them. They learned to work together instead of trying to dominate each other. The Corvin representative, one of only 3 council members who had survived the wars, spoke with a voice full of sadness and regret. His crystal body was cracked and dim compared to the bright blue glow he used to have. We understand now what we failed to see before. he said slowly. Humans were not controlling us or trying to rule us. You were holding us together, preventing us from going back to what we were before we met you. We thought leadership was oppression. We were wrong. Dr. Lisa Morgan was Earth's leading expert on how alien societies had changed after the collapse. She had spent 5 years studying which species survived and why. The species that successfully adapted developed several key traits, she explained. They learned to negotiate instead of fight. They started solving problems through talking rather than violence. They began taking responsibility for keeping peace instead of expecting others to do it for them. Basically, they learned the lessons humanity had been trying to teach for 30 years. Jake looked around the small meeting room. Only 12 alien species were represented here, out of the thousands that used to belong to the Galactic Council. These 12 had learned how to work together without human help. Earth's position has not changed, Jake said firmly. We remain neutral. We will trade with any peaceful group. We will provide emergency medical aid when we can. We will defend our own territory. But we will not go back to being the galaxy's mediator. That time is finished forever. The ethereal representative floated forward. It was much smaller and dimmer than the great chancellor who used to run the council meetings. And if we were to create a new council? A new system for galactic cooperation based on what we have learned? Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Then you will have to learn to make it work without us. The galaxy belongs to you now. You can govern it wisely or destroy it completely. That choice is yours to make. The meeting continued for several hours as the surviving alien representatives discussed plans for rebuilding some form of galactic cooperation. They talked about creating small regional councils instead of one big galactic government. They discussed sharing the cost of peacekeeping forces instead of expecting one species to do everything. They planned trade agreements that were fair to everyone instead of benefiting only the strongest. As the meeting ended, Jake walked to the station's observation deck. Through the big windows, he could see the stars. But he knew that many of those star systems were now empty, their planets destroyed in wars that could have been prevented. Captain Ryan Foster, Jake's young aide, joined him at the window. Do you think they will succeed this time, sir? Jake watched a patrol of ships fly by the station. The patrol included vessels from 4 different alien species, working together to protect the neutral zone around Harmony Station. Former enemies were now cooperating because they had learned the hard way that the alternative was mutual destruction. Maybe, Jake said after thinking for a moment. They have certainly paid a high enough price for the education. Sometimes you have to lose everything to learn what really matters. The galaxy would eventually rebuild, Jake knew. It would be much smaller than before, with fewer inhabited worlds and fewer living beings. It would be more careful and less trusting, but it would belong to the aliens who built it, not to humans who maintained it. As Earth's delegation prepared to leave Harmony Station, Jake took one last look at the representatives of galactic civilization. They would succeed or fail based on their own efforts and their own choices. Humans would not save them again. The age of human protection was over. The age of alien self-determination had finally begun. Jake smiled as he thought about Earth's growing colonies and expanding territory. While the galaxy had torn itself apart, humanity had been building new worlds and exploring new star systems. Earth was stronger now than it had ever been. Come on, Ryan, Jake said as he turned away from the window. Let's go home. We have our own future to build. Behind them, the surviving aliens continued their discussions about building a new galactic order. It would be their success or failure to claim. Humanity had given them the ultimate lesson in responsibility by walking away when they needed it most. The galaxy was finally free to choose its own destiny.